Bram Netter got off his knees at the plank kitchen table at 9 in the morning on a Thursday in June and said to his 4-year-old niece Ollie, "Sweet girl, please 1 spoon of oatmeal, please." Ollie Netter, 4 years old, orphaned 6 months back when her father Josh Netter and her mother Ellen had both died of a lung sickness inside the same fortnight, sat in her small chair, with her small hands folded in her small lap, and looked at the spoon of oatmeal her uncle was holding out to her, and said, in a small, clear, steady voice, "Uncle Bram, I am not going to eat until the lady from the stagecoach comes to see me." Bram Netter set the spoon down slowly. He said, "Sweet girl, the lady from the stagecoach." Ollie said, "Uncle Bram, yes." He said, "Which lady from the stagecoach?" Ollie said, "The lady in the gray dress, who sat next to me from Denver, who let me hold her handkerchief, who told me the story about the little girl who did not eat until her uncle brought a lady to see her, who kissed my forehead when the stage stopped at the Netter Ranch Trail and said, 'God bless you, Ollie Netter.' That lady." Bram Netter looked at his housekeeper, Widow Payne, who was 60 and had been keeping his kitchen since Ellen's death in December. Widow Payne said, "Sir." Bram said, "Widow Payne, was there a lady in a gray dress on the stagecoach from Denver on Tuesday?" Widow Payne said, "There was. She got off at Broken Ridge. I helped Ollie down from the stage at the Netter Trail on Tuesday afternoon, sir. I remember the lady in the gray dress. She was very kind to Ollie. Ollie held her hand across the whole 3 hours from Denver." Bram Netter said, "Do you know the lady's name?" Widow Payne said, "I do not, sir. The stagecoach clerk at Broken Ridge would." Bram Netter said, "Widow Payne, please make Ollie a small cup of milk with a small drop of honey. I am going to Broken Ridge." He got on his horse. He rode to Broken Ridge. The stagecoach clerk at Broken Ridge, a plain, honest, bald man called Tommins, looked at the register for Tuesday and said, "Netter, the lady in the gray dress was Miss Prue Astor of Fort Collins. She has taken a room at Widow Meal's boarding hotel for the fortnight. She is here to consider taking the small teacher position at the Broken Ridge School." Bram Netter said, "Tommins, I am obliged." He rode to Widow Meal's boarding hotel. He knocked at the parlor door. Widow Meal let him in. Widow Meal said, "Mr. Netter." Bram said, "Widow Meal, is Miss Astor in?" Widow Meal said, "She is at the school this morning. She will be back at 11. Bram Netter said, "I will wait." Widow Meal said, "Sir, it is 9:40. Have coffee." He had coffee. He waited at the plank parlor table with the coffee. At 11, Prue Astor came in. She was 33. She was in a plain gray day dress. She had chestnut hair pinned back tidy. She had a plain, honest, kind face, and gray at the temples. She stopped at the parlor door when she saw a strange rancher at the plank table. Bram Netter stood up. He took his hat off. He said, "Miss Astor, my name is Bram Netter. I run the small Netter Ranch 9 miles west of Broken Ridge. I am the uncle of Ollie Netter, 4, whom you sat next to on the Denver stage on Tuesday. Ollie has, this morning, refused to eat oatmeal until the lady in the gray dress from the stagecoach comes to see her. I have come to ask you, plainly, whether you would be willing to come out to the ranch this afternoon and drink a cup of tea at the plank table with a 4-year-old who has decided you are the plainer, honester friend. I understand this is a considerable request of a plain, honest schoolmistress on a Thursday morning. I would pay a fair, honest hourly rate for a schoolmistress's time. I would drive you in the buckboard both ways. Please answer at your leisure." Prue Astor set her small leather teacher's bag on the parlor table. She said, "Mr. Netter." Bram said, "Bram." She said, "Prue, please do not pay me. I would like to see Ollie. I have been thinking about Ollie since the Netter Trail on Tuesday afternoon. She held my hand 3 hours and did not once whimper. I did not know she had lost her parents. Widow Payne, the woman who helped her off the stage, told me only that Ollie was going to her uncle's ranch. I have been thinking about her hand every hour since. Please drive me out at noon. I will not need coin." Bram Netter said, "Prue Astor." Prue said, "Yes." He said, "Please put on your hat. We drive now." Ollie Netter, 4, in the small chair at the plank table, looked up when Prue Astor came in through the kitchen door at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, behind Bram Netter, and said, in her small, clear, steady voice, "The lady in the gray dress." Prue Astor went down on her knees on the plank floor beside Ollie's small chair. She said, "Miss Ollie Netter, I am here." Ollie said, "I will eat now." Widow Payne, at the stove, wiped her eyes with a corner of her apron. Ollie ate her oatmeal. She ate 2 pieces of buttered brown bread. She ate a small green apple sliced by Prue Astor into small 4-year-old pieces. She drank a small cup of milk. Prue Astor sat with Ollie the whole afternoon. She told Ollie 3 stories at the plank table by Bram's request. She helped Ollie feed the 2 barn cats, 9 and 10, the leftover crust of Ollie's brown bread. She read Ollie a page of a McGuffey First at 3 o'clock in the parlor rocker. At 4 o'clock, when Bram Netter had come in from the barn to drive Prue back to Broken Ridge, Ollie said, from the parlor rocker, in a small, clear, steady voice, "Uncle Bram." Bram said, "Yes, sweet girl." Ollie said, "The lady in the gray dress must come every day." Bram said, "Sweet girl, Miss Astor has her work at the Broken Ridge School. She cannot come every day." Ollie said, "Then she must live here." Bram Netter did not for a moment know what to say. Prue Astor said, gently, "Miss Ollie, that is a very big invitation for a very small woman to give." Ollie said, "Miss Prue, it is not." Prue Astor went home to Broken Ridge that evening. She came back on Saturday. She came back on Monday. She came back on Wednesday. By the end of the 2nd week, she was coming out 3 afternoons of every week and staying for supper. The Broken Ridge School hired her on the 18th of June, and she took the small teacher's cottage next to the school as her regular quarters. She continued to come out to the Netter Ranch 3 afternoons of every week. Ollie, at the plank table, prospered. Bram Netter watched Prue Astor read to Ollie in the parlor rocker on Wednesday evenings, and understood, at the end of July, that he was in love with the plain, honest schoolmistress in the gray dress from the Denver stage. He said so plainly at the plank table on the 2nd Sunday of August. He said, "Prue." Prue said, "Bram." He said, "I have been in love with you since the parlor rocker on the 11th of July, when you read Ollie, a small chapter of the Psalms, in a plain, honest voice, at 7 o'clock in the evening. I have not said it since, because Ollie's whole plain, honest recovery has depended on your Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday visits, and I did not want to press against the recovery. I am pressing now because I have watched Ollie eat her supper 4 evenings in a row, without asking whether you would come tomorrow, and I understand that Ollie has, at 4 years old, decided you are already family, and my saying so plainly at this plank table would not be pressing on the recovery. It would be the plainer, honester recognition of a plainer, honester household." Prue Astor set her fork down. She said, "Bram Netter." He said, "Yes." She said, "I have been in love with you since the plank kitchen at 1 o'clock on the Thursday afternoon of the 11th of June, when you thanked me at the door in a plain, honest voice for the ordinary Thursday afternoon that had been the largest kindness of my life. I have not said it, because I did not want you to think I had accepted Broken Ridge's teacher position on the strength of it. I accepted the position on the strength of it. I would like to marry you plainly at your plank table, and I would like Ollie Netter to be my niece, and I would like to keep the small Broken Ridge school in the daytimes, because Ollie is 4 years old, and would like a plainer, honester schoolmistress in her own house at 4. That is my plain answer." Bram Netter said, "Yes." Ollie Netter, from the parlor rocker where she had been quietly listening at the plank table door because she was 4 years old and did not miss things, came into the kitchen and said, in a small, clear, steady voice, "Miss Prue, please stay." Prue Astor said, "I am staying, Miss Ollie." Ollie said, "Uncle Bram." Bram said, "Yes, sweet girl." Ollie said, "Are you going to marry Miss Prue?" Bram said, "Yes, sweet girl." Ollie said, "About time." Widow Payne, at the stove, wiped her eyes. The circuit preacher married Bram Netter and Prue Astor in the front room of the Netter Ranch on the last Sunday of September. Ollie, 4.5, held the ring on a folded piece of blue muslin without dropping it. Widow Payne gave the bride away. The stagecoach clerk Tommins rode out for the wedding because he said later, taken a personal interest in the whole business from the register on Tuesday of June. 2 years on a warm September evening at the Netter Ranch, Prue Netter sat on the porch step with Bram beside her. Ollie Netter, 6.5 now, was reading a McGuffey third to a small brother, Josh, 10 months old, and named for Bram's late brother, asleep in Ollie's small, careful arms on the porch bench. Widow Payne, at 62, was in the porch rocker with her mending and had, in 8 months, quietly moved into the small back room off the mudroom as a permanent household member because Bram had, at Prue's private request, asked her to. Bram said, "Prue." Prue said, "Bram." He said, "Ollie asked me at breakfast whether she may have a small brown pony of her own for her 7th birthday." Prue said, "Yes." Bram said, "She has asked me only once." Prue said, "That is because she is a plain, honest woman of 6 who does not press. She has known the answer since April. Please buy her the pony in December, so she has forgotten she asked." Bram said, "Yes." Ollie Netter, on the porch bench, read a plain, honest sentence of McGuffey without missing a word. Josh, in her arms, dreamed a small, honest dream of a plank table. And Prue Astor Netter, who had sat next to a small 4-year-old on the Denver stage on a Tuesday afternoon in June, and had held her hand 3 hours from Denver to the Netter Trail because a small 4-year-old had needed a hand to hold, put her cheek against her husband's shoulder, and understood that the good, slow country had, in its good, slow way, arranged a plain, honest 3-hour stagecoach ride from Denver to Broken Ridge, and had, on the strength of a small 4-year-old's plain, honest refusal to eat oatmeal on a Thursday morning at 9, given her back not just Broken Ridge's small teacher position, but the whole rest of a household at the Netter Ranch under a plain, honest niece's plain, honest, plainer, honester recognition of an ordinary Thursday afternoon. And so it had.